What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Streckbein, not joined by anybody today, live at St. Vincent College. Nick Belsky, producer Nick, is on the road in Madison Square Garden, seeing some show somewhere that I am not familiar with, but he's enjoying a good weekend off. We are here at St. Vincent College. Please check us out at youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Find us everywhere you get your podcast. I'm excited to dive into this. It's been a long time since I've done a solo pod here just to talk to the chat, hang out, answer all the questions, and dive into another beautiful day, day one of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp in St. Vincent College. It's been a great time. I need you guys to let me know because a couple of things. I don't have a technical nothing. It's me and a pair of headphones. Is there an echo? How am I sounding? We doing good? If there's a bunch of thumbs up things that keep popping up, we'll dive through them. But as always, I am here to answer all your guys' questions. We'll dive into the biggest news of the day, which is Russell Wilson's injury. Justin Fields takes QB1 reps. Kyle Allen, John Rice Plumlee get a couple of reps, and Mike Tomlin dives into all that. Some Cam Hayward talk from Omar Khan, and then wide receiver 2 slot corner competition that I think had a good day. It was a good day for both positions and where we can go. Obviously, not everybody has heard, but you should have heard by now. Russell Wilson did not practice for the Pittsburgh Steelers today. Calf strain or calf tightness, I guess the Pittsburgh Steelers are clarifying it or saying that it is. Justin Fields found out at 6 a.m. from a text message from quarterbacks coach Tom Arth. Came out here ready to go. He said he went to bed studying the playbook. He woke up to the news that he would be the QB1 for the first day of practice, and well, he took it in stride. Everything was moving, and he had a deep ball to Van Jefferson that I thought looked good. I'll say this. There's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of hype around Justin Fields' performance today, and I was waiting all day for the one pass that went deep and made him look phenomenal, and it was a touchdown. It would go viral all over Twitter, and it happened. It was a deep ball to Van Jefferson. Dante Jackson falls on the route, and DeMonte KZ can't get over there on time. Next thing you know, Van Jefferson is 10 yards in front of everybody and taking it to the house. And Justin Fields looks great, and it goes viral, and everybody's talking about, oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they might have a guy. People are saying, Louis Riddick said QB1 on Twitter. Look, Justin Fields looked good at times. At times he did not. And I think that's very important, as you are only going to see the highlights, but at the end of the day, the whole picture is very important. And the whole picture was Justin Fields looked at moments like a guy who has a ton of potential, and then looked at moments like a guy who needs a ton of work. And I think that's who Justin Fields is. And that's okay. It's good that Justin Fields is coming in here and needs some work, because if not, the Pittsburgh Steelers would be making a massive mistake starting Russell Wilson and putting him in pole position over the 25-year-old with so much ahead of him in the NFL. Just wouldn't make any sense. Instead, it's a year where Justin Fields can learn behind Russell Wilson, and that makes a lot of sense watching Justin Fields and what he can do for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But at no moment today did you go out there and say, man, dude, I think Justin took a step forward. There might be some real competition in his performance in day one. Now, obviously, Russell Wilson's injury is the big part of this. That's the big question. What's going to come from it? How long is he going to stay out? I mean, look at this. This is the big thing, is if you showed up yesterday and you didn't go on the PUP list, chances are that any injury that has come up, anything that is discomfort or tightness or whatever Mike Tomlin wants to clarify it as, it really did probably happen in the last 24 hours. I think it's a little bit of a concern. I'm not concerned that Russell Wilson is going to miss massive time and sit out week one or miss all of training camp or any of that. I'm just saying, day one, you're out there for about an hour and a half max. Most of the reps are going to the backups because the first team guys are just kind of getting their feet wet, but they don't want any injuries on day one. It just kind of felt like you could have went out there. Russell Wilson, was throwing on the sidelines. I just don't understand. To be honest with you, I personally think it was Mike Tomlin kind of messing with us. I think it was him just saying, you know what? Russ has got a little bit of tightness, nothing crazy. He came to us at about 5 a.m. I think I'm going to say we're going to sit him and not have a discussion past that. I think that's what it was. I don't look at this as a massive news or something that is very concerning for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but certainly something to monitor because I don't know how long Russell Wilson's going to miss. And I don't know what it does to this quarterback competition moving forward. I will say right now, nothing has changed. Day one, there goes the lights. Day two of the lights going off on me. I'm sure we'll be here every single day with the same thing. I don't even have Nick to toss it over to as I try to go open these up. I'm sure as Russell misses and we continue this, and whether it's a day, whether it's 2 days, who knows, we'll get more of Justin Fields and be able to see, hey, look at, he does have his flashes, and these are good moments and these are bad moments, and the Steelers will go from there. But day one, nothing crazy to report on, to be honest with you, when it comes to Justin Fields' performance. There was a really good pass. There was a couple of pretty good plays. There was also a couple of throws that were at George Pickens' feet and bounced before they got to a wide receiver and were way off the mark and wobbled all in the air. So there's the good and the bad, and you got to take it. And that's where we are with Justin Fields. Russell Wilson's injury is certainly something to monitor and a bit of a surprise. Wouldn't say it's concerning, but it's been a long time since I've been in Pittsburgh and the QB1, the real QB1, wasn't out here on day one of training camp, no matter what it is. So that's something to keep an eye on because at 35 years old, I mean, calf tightness that's keeping you out of pretty much a walkthrough. Bit of a, I would say a red flag, but again, nothing too concerning. There are two other things that I want to talk about here that I think are important when it comes to today. So there's not a ton that you could take away from day one of training camp. I think that's very important. Is you can't go into day one of camp with no pads on and everybody just getting adjusted and you showed up 24 hours ago and say, oh man, we have all these massive takeaways. Here are the biggest ones. There was this switch up and that switch up. And no, day one of training camp is who looks good, who looks comfortable. You get your first sights of who's ready to take a step forward. And then you also get some of the insight of the plans of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's what they gave us today. They talked about Cam Hayward's contract extension, and we'll dive into that later. They talked about a possible wide receiver trade and where they're looking there, and we'll dive into that later. But on the field, it was two things that were very obvious. And those two things were the slot corner and the quote-unquote wide receiver 2. And I think we have to start there. Pat Freiermuth, hands down, looked like the best pass catching option on the field today, without a question. He was all over the field, whether it was on the sidelines catching passes, in the middle of the field getting open, working his own defense. It didn't matter. He was all over the place. He was catching passes from Justin Fields, Kyle Allen. I don't know if John Rice Plumlee got one to him, but he was out there as much as possible, and he was making plays as much as possible. This was the first day of everything that we've talked about. All the, well, can Pat Freiermuth be the number 2? Can he be the guy that emerges, Travis Kelce type tight end, so on and so forth? I'm not going to say that's a definite. I don't think you could say anything that's a definite on day one of training camp. I will say that I'm very encouraged from what he showed us today on that field. That if you had to pick who was the most impressive player at Pittsburgh Steelers training camp today, it's hands down Pat Freiermuth. No doubt about it. He looked great. He looked smooth. He looked slimmer, which he was never been a big guy, but he just looked a little bit more in shape. Excited to see what Pat Freiermuth can do. The rest of the guys, nobody stood out. And I think that's the other part of this is Calvin Austin didn't have that catch. Connor Hayward didn't have that catch. In fact, Connor Hayward fumbled at one point, and that was the biggest news that came out of that. And that's not a concern for me. I mean, it's day one and things happen. You have all of camp, but Jaylen Warren caught more passes than most of these wide receiver 2 candidates. George Pickens went up and almost came down with a George Pickens type catch, which is great to see, but that was all that you got. Quez Watkins, Marquez Callaway, none of these guys were present in a way that stood out. Pat Freiermuth stood out. He looked like a guy who was ready to do this. The defense didn't have an answer for him. I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers have a plan for him, and it was somewhat evident today. They ran a lot of 2 tight end sets, and Pat was the guy that was featured in all those as the, I'm going out and I'm going to see if I can make something happen. The Steelers might have something in this guy, and it might be, it might be big enough to overcome some difficulties on this offense because the defense certainly looked like the best unit out there today. But you could say that Pat gave them some hope that they can develop an offensive plan around George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth and the running game, which Najee Harris looked real fast out there. Very nice to see. And Jaylen Warren looked like Jaylen Warren. So good stuff's happening on the offense, but Pat Freiermuth has emerged as that not wide receiver 2 right off the bat. And that's something that we must keep an eye on moving forward, because if that hits, if Pat Freiermuth is that guy, the Steelers have an answer, and that's a good answer because Pat's got so much potential. People say, oh, second round pick, you shouldn't have drafted him in the second round. The Steelers knew how much potential Pat Freiermuth had in the receiving game when they drafted him. I think this is the year that he's got an opportunity to kind of step up and hit that potential and continue to grow into that second pass catching option for a guy like Russell Wilson. On the defensive side of the ball, it was the slot cornerback position, and it's good to see early where the Pittsburgh Steelers' heads are. Obviously, they're going to test everybody out, and who started today isn't going to start tomorrow or the day after that or the day after that. They're going to work through Josiah Scott and Graylin Arnold and Nate Meters and Thomas Graham and Anthony Averett and everybody else. But today they gave us some insight into what they were looking at and where things can go. Who started was the most significant piece of this, and that was Deshaun Elliott moving into the box. He moved up when they went into nickel or whatever sub package they needed a slot corner in. He moved up into the corner role. DeMonte KZ came in and played safety. And I believe that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers' heads are for that first 8 weeks of the season. Cam Sutton didn't take any first-team reps today, and that is important to note. I don't know what it means. I don't know if it's too early to say that it means anything at all. All I'm saying is if you're not taking any first-team reps and the team is already looking at how can we get the other options out there, you better hope that nobody emerges as a really strong top option and that nobody emerges as a really strong second option, because that's concerning to where maybe you just don't need Cam Sutton in the back half of the season. That's a long way away, and I believe Cam Sutton is a very valuable corner in the NFL, especially at that slot position. But it's not good that he's not taking any first-team reps today, especially after Mike Tomlin said that he was not going to see a dip in reps, and he most certainly did. Deshaun Elliott was the guy that came out there. He bumped down. He looked good. I think Deshaun Elliott fits that role naturally for the Steelers. It does leave you with minimal options at safety because DeMonte KZ and Minkah Fitzpatrick are going to be back there, but you don't have a third safety. That's where I get a little iffy with this because, yeah, Deshaun Elliott is your best bet to play slot cornerback, but it also removes the idea of Minkah Ball, which I believe is an even more important piece to this defense. Minkah Ball is the make or break. Minkah Ball is the good defense, great defense, elite defense, and he could be the difference maker. So you want to be able to give him the reps back there. The second guy that came in here at slot corner was Beanie Bishop. And that was a stunner because Josiah Scott was supposed to be the guy. Josiah Scott was supposed to be the name that came out here and led the way. And I'm sure he'll get first team reps maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after that. Who knows? But Beanie Bishop was the first team guy outside of Deshaun Elliott. And that says something that the Pittsburgh Steelers want to test out their undrafted rookie and see what they got in him. He's got Mike Hilton vibes. We've been saying this for a while. I don't know. I believe that Beanie Bishop is a name to watch only because the Steelers wanted to put their faith in him first. It doesn't mean he's going to start. It doesn't mean he's the favorite. Nothing. It means that the Pittsburgh Steelers looked at all their options and said, we would like Beanie Bishop to be the one that works out first. That's great. I like Beanie Bishop. Everybody should like Beanie Bishop. I got high hopes for what this kid brings to the table. You got to see it. He didn't show much in OTAs and minicamp, but man, he must have showed more to the Steelers than he did to me because they liked him enough to say, you're the first guy out there in a crowded room of veterans with guys who have starting experience. That says something. His play says more, and that's going to speak and decide the final whatever. But for right now, Beanie Bishop got a shot, and that's easily a headline to monitor as we move forward. Omar Khan talked about Brandon Ayuk and a possible wide receiver trade and where the cap space is going, and then obviously hinted at Cam Hayward and a contract extension, and we'll dive into those. But I do want to answer you guys' questions as we go through this because it is only me today, and if I just talk to myself the whole time, I mean, that'd be terrible, and you guys should not listen because that's an awful podcast. So I'd rather talk to you guys. We'll dive into some questions. Keep asking some questions. I'll go back and forth between questions and everything else. Before we dive into them, obviously, we got a quick word here from our boys over at BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Have you ever found yourself scrolling on social media, maybe spending too much time on whatever platform you're addicted to and thinking, man, why am I feeling down? Why do I find myself not finding the joy that social media is supposed to give me? That's because comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. But therapy can help. It can help you focus on what you want instead of what other people have, so you can start living your best life. I'm somebody who's advocated for therapy for a long time. You constantly see me wearing the sweatshirt, going to therapy is cool. I've reaped the benefits for years, and I think everybody who's thinking about it should add that to their agenda as well, because in one way or another, it's very helpful. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/allsteelers today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/allsteelers. Shout out our boys over at BetterHelp. All right, let's dive into some questions here. And I'm going to start with somebody calling me out because, to be honest with you, I'm not looking for this, but I'll take the smoke on this one. Come on, bro. What's up with the title? It's day one. So here's the thing is I don't think Russell Wilson and his injury is big news. And I don't think that it's something that's a massive concern. But at the same time, it's not good for the Pittsburgh Steelers to not be with their starting quarterback on day one. And when we're talking about the title, a quarterback shakeup is exactly what this was. We walked out onto the practice field, and guess what? There was no starting quarterback. The starting quarterback was your backup quarterback. That's a shakeup, man. That's as big as it gets. So when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I could have slapped one Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback injury on here, but I didn't. You want to know why? Because Russell Wilson didn't practice at all, and that's a shakeup. And to me, that is as big of a headline as they come when it comes to the first day of training camp. Go ask Baltimore Ravens fans who have talked about nothing but Lamar Jackson throwing up for the last 2 days because they're freaking out about it. And we're just trying to settle the nerves of Russell Wilson and those who are worried that Russell Wilson is going to miss some time. Chad here, there's a report Pickens was upset with wide receiver coach Zach Azzanni. How true is it? And if so, how bad? I did not see this exchange. I saw the reports that came out from Ray Fittipaldo. I trust Ray Fittipaldo and his eyes out there and his ears out there. So if he says it happened, it probably did. That being said, I think it's day one. You don't want tensions to get high, but Azzanni's he's a hard-nosed coach, man. He's going to give it to you straight. He's not going to let anything come his way. I think it's good that him and George maybe got into a heated exchange, because if George has that wide receiver one, I'm allowed to do whatever I want and I should never get in trouble for it attitude, you got to shut that down early before it becomes an issue. And I believe that if that's what happened here, that's good for the Pittsburgh Steelers that they got that out of the way as fast as possible before it became maybe a bigger issue. And it's good that Azzanni's going back at it because, yeah, look, George is going to yell, but the other side of that report is Azzanni didn't fall to or anything like that. He stood his ground, and that's big. When do you guys think Brandon Ayuk trade could go down? If it does, my first timeline was tomorrow. That does not seem as likely because Omar Khan said today that, well, they're not currently talking to anybody. Do I believe him? No, not even a little bit. I do believe that currently, as of 3 o'clock or 1:30 this afternoon when we spoke to him, that he wasn't engaged in conversations. Do I think those conversations are all the time happening? Yes, certainly. He is fully aware of what's going on. And he mentioned a number of times that window is open and that they will communicate with all 32 GMs and see if they could find something that suits them the best for this upcoming season. And they have cap space to spend. And he said it's clear as day that he doesn't typically keep cap space and head into the season with cap space. So that's got to mean something, my friend. I don't know when it happens. I look at it and say, if I had to guess, it's more into August. But every day that passes that Brandon Ayuk is not on the field and a deal does not get done, and the 49ers are dealing with Trent Williams and so on and so forth, it's working in Pittsburgh's favor. Easy. How's Logan Lee looked? I haven't seen much of Logan Lee, to be honest with you. It's tough to pay attention to the defensive line when there are no pads on. Next week they put pads on, and we'll see more of him for sure. That's when we'll get a look at the offensive and the defensive line a little bit more and be able to judge these guys, because right now it's just, and that's it. That's all you're looking at. So I would say next week you'll get more. How much is Russ paying me, dude? I'm a big Russ believer. I believe Russ has the tools and looked good in Denver at the end of the season. He's got some massive things to change, but also Nathaniel Hackett is a really bad coach when it comes to anybody but Aaron Rodgers, and Sean Payton didn't want anything to do with him. So I believe Russ is in a much better situation than he was last year, 2 years ago, and maybe 3 years ago in Seattle. And because of that, yeah, I got some hope in the guy. Checking in from Hawaii. I watch you guys' videos heading into work. Appreciate you, my man. I believe this season we are going to surprise the league. Let's go Steelers. No doubt. No doubt. How did Peyton Wilson look? Sad about Russell Wilson. Obviously, we're all sad about Russell Wilson. Peyton Wilson looked good at moments. Again, linebackers, tough to judge without pads on, but he's fast. There was one play in particular where I don't remember who was at quarterback. I want to say it was Kyle Allen. Play action pass. By the time he turned around, Peyton Wilson was already 3 yards behind him, because you're not going to touch a quarterback in practice. You're just going to keep running. And Peyton Wilson was already back there. He would have blown up that play into another universe. It would have been awesome. He's looked good out here. He looks fast. He looks natural. Him, Patrick Queen looked really good, and Landon Roberts looked really good. I'm excited for what this wide receiver, or this linebacker core, has to do. How's the wide receiver 2 battle looking? To be honest, Pat Freiermuth, and I talked about this most of the first half of the show, Pat Freiermuth looked the best out there today, including George Pickens. He looked like the best offensive weapon the Pittsburgh Steelers had in a day where, Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris don't really get to do much. Najee looked really quick and elusive and fast, which is different for Najee Harris. But there were times where Pat Freiermuth looked really, really good. Besides that, nobody really stood out. Van Jefferson had the deep ball. That's something to note. But besides that, there wasn't really anything there. And on the deep ball to Van Jefferson, it is important to say that Dante Jackson fell on that play. Because am I trying to take anything away from Van Jefferson? No. But I also don't want to hype up somebody in a play where you could go back and say, oh, well, the corner fell on the route. Yeah, exactly. That's why he was that wide open. Would he have caught the ball? Probably. But I still think it's important to say that Dante Jackson fell on that play. All right. This is where I need Nick, guys. I can't read and talk at the same time. I'm not great at the whole back and forth thing. I'm just waiting for the Steelers to sign Patrick Peterson, Xavier Howard, Justin Simmons, and Michael Thomas. What a duo or trio or quadrupler there. That's crazy. I don't think Xavier Howard is on the docket. I don't think Justin Simmons is an option just because of his price tag. I think Michael Thomas is an option for the Steelers later in the summer if they desperately need a wide receiver. And I think Patrick Peterson's return is on the table, but I don't know. Omar Khan was asked about that today, and he did not have a very good answer. It was just, the door is always open for a return. Nobody cares. At this point, Omar, I think, is beyond Patrick Peterson and will remain beyond Patrick Peterson until proven otherwise. And if they're putting Deshaun Elliott in the slot, it means that they already have an understanding that they have somebody who's starter capable there if none of their other guys work out. But they're going to hope that somebody works out. How did Calvin Austin III look? He didn't really do much today, and I was kind of hoping he did. But at the same time, it was an hour and a half practice. It was short. It was kind of a walkthrough. There were a lot of sessions with the backups with Kyle Allen and John Rice Plumlee and those guys. So you didn't really get to see a whole ton. I hope Calvin emerges as this wide receiver too. I think he's got all the talent in the world. But to be honest with you, today, a bit of a slow day for all of those wide receivers. And Calvin didn't really do a whole ton. If you could trade for one wide receiver, a realistic trade, who would it be besides Brandon Ayuk? I mean, Cortland Sutton signed an extension or a restructure today, paying him a little bit more money. So I think he's off the table. He was the most realistic one, but if you're going to switch it up, I mean, Deebo Samuel should be on the table for the 49ers if they sign Ayuk. So I would go Deebo Samuel, I guess. I wouldn't feel great about that option, to be real with you. I think Traylon Burks is a name to watch, but also, like, you're not getting anything better than what you got in Traylon Burks. You're not getting anything better than you got in a guy like Noah Brown, those names. I believe that maybe Deebo Samuel could be there in a realistic trade. Maybe I'd go a second round pick, a third round pick for Deebo and get him for 2 years and believe that you could win a Super Bowl and feel good about it. But that's probably as good as you're going to get there. How did Kyle Allen play today? I know, Humberto, you're a big Kyle Allen guy. I don't think he was super impressive. None of the quarterbacks in my eyes today were very impressive. There were a lot of balls that were bad passes. There was a lot of balls that were short, not a lot of overthrows, a lot of underthrows, which is, I don't know. I don't know if that's more concerning or less concerning. I'd have to ask a quarterback's coach, but a lot of balls that were on the ground today, not great. Kyle Allen didn't look super impressive. John Rice Plumlee didn't look super impressive. Justin Fields didn't look super impressive. It's a learning curve for all of them. I would imagine that more time and better weapons and the development of some of these guys like Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson definitely help. But for right now, Kyle Allen did not look great. Did not look great. What's wrong with Russell Wilson? Suffered a calf tightness, I guess, overnight. Mike Tomlin said it was nothing serious. He said he was ready to go, but they held him out. To be honest with you, that is more concerning to me than the rest of it. Is Mike Tomlin saying that he was capable of going and they told him not to? I don't really believe that. Mike Tomlin has said many of times in the past, I just give you guys something. And he has made it very clear that you can't always trust him in press conferences. And with this one, I don't think Russell Wilson's injury concerns me at all, but I also don't believe that he was ready to go today, which is something to monitor. It's day one of training camp. This is not going to affect him into the season, but it's also, hey, how long is he going to miss? And if he's back out there tomorrow, totally fine. But if he's not out there tomorrow, then it's okay. Russell Wilson missed 2 days. Okay. Russell Wilson missed 3 days. At what point is he going to be out here and ready to go? And how much of an advantage can Justin Fields take during that absence? Again, right now it's way too early to tell and just something to monitor, but that's where we are. What do you think about people saying Arthur Smith's system can't support both Pickens and Ayuk? What about the Steelers' thoughts around this? I don't think the Steelers have thoughts around this right now that are out in the public, but when it comes to them not supporting both, I think that they could very well support. That's crazy to say that, to be honest with you. And I'm sure people are, but go back to Arthur Smith's offense in Tennessee, and AJ Brown was was a Pro Bowler with 1,000 yards, and Corey Davis had over 800 yards, I believe. Derrick Henry was the offensive player of the year, and Ryan Tannehill was the comeback player of the year. Like, everybody worked out. Jonnu Smith was a stud. Like, I don't know where people are getting that from. And they are. Everybody's throwing everything against the wall trying to criticize Arthur Smith's offense. To be totally honest with you, I think it's all nonsense, because if you go back to his days as an offensive coordinator, he knows how to get things done and he does it well. And the Steelers are going to use what they have. And if they have George Pickens and Brandon Ayuk, I doubt that they're going to design an offense and say, well, you know what? We're only going to really be able to feature one of these guys at all times, because that's just what we're got. No chance. You're going to do it for both. I think you'd be totally fine. Who are the starters in the 3-4 defense? I think the big ones to note was Landon Roberts was starting at inside linebacker, not Peyton Wilson, which expected, I guess. Dante Jackson, Joey Porter, Deshaun Elliott, Minka Fitzpatrick, and then the rest was everything you would imagine the rest to be. How did Roman Wilson look? Again, kind of non-existent. I don't even know if he caught a pass, or at least one that I recognized. So at this point, it's just what can we get out of him in the next couple of days? Right now, it's not much. I heard rumors of Alan Lazard. They're not rumors. They're just a blog post. I know where you're talking about it. I don't believe he is a strong option for the Steelers. He's 28 years old. He didn't do anything last year. And people are like, oh, well, he played well in Green Bay. I agree with that. Or Kansas City. I think it was Green Bay. Yeah, I agree with that. But also, it was like his best year was like 700 yards, so it's not a deal breaker. Van Jefferson's best year was 700 or 800 yards, so you might kind of be getting the same thing. He's got more upside, maybe, but still not the best. Hope all is well with Nick. Nick's at a concert, man, out in New York City. He's having a blast. His wife bought him tickets on the worst weekend of the year, second worst weekend of the year, because the first one would have been week one of the season. When he told me that he was going, he said, "Hey, man, I don't know if he wants his wife's name out here, so we'll just say his wife bought me tickets for the first week." And I said, "No." And he said, "No, no, first week of training camp." And I was like, "Oh, why would you do that to me? Why would you scare me like that, thinking it's the first week of the season?" But he's out there. Hope he's enjoying his time. When he'll be back on Monday. When it comes to the funniest moment of the day, man, that's a tough one. Funniest moment of the day. Maybe Omar saying that he's got to lose weight for Hard Knocks. I think that was a good one. Cam Hayward kind of talking about how like it's just annoying at this point, all the questions that he's getting about his contract. There were a couple of them. People are super open at this point. I'll give you the best quote of the day, hands down. The best quote of the day was Keanu Benton. Somebody asked him, "Hey, Mike Tomlin said that he has really big expectations for you in year two," and Keanu Benton's quote was, "That makes two of us." So that was awesome. Um, it wasn't super funny day. Wish now that you're pointing that out, wish it was. Definitely wish it was. All right, keep it going here. What do I make of Omar Khan's comments on the Brandon Ayuk trade situation? I somewhat addressed this earlier. I'll address it again. I think that at this point, we're looking at it and saying he wants a wide receiver deal. There is none on the table right now, but he'll continue to look and he'll continue to answer the phone. I don't believe it's in his court at this point. I don't believe it's in the Pittsburgh Steelers court to get a wide receiver deal done. I believe it's in everybody else's. It's can we wait and see if the 49ers will give up and trade Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel? Will the Houston Texans want to get rid of somebody? Will the Tennessee Titans move on from Traylon Burks? I mean, there are a bunch of questions that will be asked over the next couple of weeks. And even Omar said that, like, we will be open for business until we have to close for business, and that may never end. So I do think that it's out there and it feels good, but it's not in their table. Where are we at here? How did DeMarvin Leal look? DeMarvin Leal, I mean, defensive lineman, it's tough to say, but today he had one play where he looked pretty athletic coming to the sideline, chasing down somebody. I thought that was a good move. But besides that, I'm not really watching the defensive lineman when it comes to no pads. I mean, when it comes to this stuff, I'm just saying you guys aren't doing anything significant. So we'll watch you next week when the pads come on. Cam Hayward was out there, which was big. And Omar kind of hinting at a deal about to get done is pretty massive. Najee needs an extension. I think Najee Harris looked good today. Omar said, "Hey, look, we value Najee. We love Najee." I'll tell you this, Najee's not getting an extension with the Steelers. I don't believe it's coming. I don't believe they want to make it happen. It's a running back. Najee understands the running back market and where it is. The Steelers understand the running back market and where it is. It's just not going to happen. But I agree with you. I think Najee's a very valuable piece to this team. Oh, this might be the one we finish it off with. Someone suggested a trade package for Justin Fields and 2 first-round picks for CeeDee Lamb. Wild thoughts. My thoughts are exactly that. That is wild. 2 first-round picks for CeeDee Lamb alone is way too much. I'm giving up 1 first-round pick for CeeDee Lamb. I'm keeping Justin Fields. I'm keeping that other first-round pick. Maybe a first and a fourth or something next year, a first and a sixth the next year. Who knows? But I believe that that is way too much. And I like CeeDee Lamb, but I want to give that up for Brandon Ayuk. I want to give that up for DK Metcalf, and I would not give that up for CeeDee Lamb. How are the quarterback contract extensions shaking out? I mean, Omar addressed it today that they're not even thinking about that right now. And I don't believe that they're going to think about that right now. I believe that they'll go into the offseason and they'll decide then after the season what it looks like and who they could sign. But for the time being, it's going to be a lot of we have to see what we have in these guys before we hand them massive money. And even Omar said, like, their plans at every position go much further than just this season. So everybody talking about like, oh, well, that's a massive cap hit. And how do you account for that? I agree with that. But he seems to have an idea that it's going to work out just fine. So I think that right now they're going to wait, but they have some understanding of probably all of their options, whether it's a Justin Fields extension, Russell Wilson extension, so on and so forth. We seem to always manhandle the Bears on trades. They do have there's a bad rep here between Ryan Poles and Omar Khan, huh? I think we could pull off a Van Jefferson for Roma Dunze. I love Roma Dunze. I wish. Steelers Depot saying Justin Fields trades to the Jets. I don't believe so. Let's go to Steelers Depot while we're chilling here. Yeah, no, I'm not seeing any of that. That would be wild. But EJ, if you found it somewhere, it's got to be on the internet. So that would be crazy. Is it going to happen? I don't believe so. I don't believe it happened. If it did, well, we'll have some stuff to talk about tomorrow. But for today, Justin Fields is in Pittsburgh. He settled in. That would suck, man. It would suck to settle into training camp as your quarterback and feeling good and getting out there on day one. And then you got to pack all up and leave to go to New Orleans. So, yeah, it is what it is. All right, guys. With that said, we are going to head out of here. This was a blast. I miss doing solo pods, and we'll be doing plenty more of them as we go through here. It will just be me tomorrow, and then Nick will be back on Monday. So I apologize if you're tired of looking at my face and only hearing my voice, but we got to do what we got to do while Nick's enjoying his time in New York City. We will be back live from Latrobe tomorrow. They are still in this process. It's the dumbest name of all time, but it's called This is the Heat. This is the Heat. I believe it should be called the ramp up period, but it's called the Heat. Weird. They are in heat. See how weird that is? Until I believe Sunday. Monday, they could put pads on and they'll go from there. So we will have plenty of content. It'll be a great time. But I will be back from St. Vincent College tomorrow. With that said, thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, please go find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.